put it up at the end.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back, Alvin. I believe the very first HarvardXR featured you as a keynote speaker.
Yes, about 3 years ago, I guess, I was the first keynote, so I'm happy to be back, and it's amazing to see the growth in this event. When I first came, it was just one room, and then it was one room. Now we have 3 different stages and demo stages, and so congrats to the HarvardXR team. Keep it up. Dude.
And it looks like we have a lot of human beings in the room. Are there any octopuses in the room, or is it octopi? Is there an octopus out there? Why are there no octopus here?
Maybe you're trying to ask something?
Yeah. I mean, we're social creatures. We all figured out how to get here on public transportation, and we're sitting in chairs, and we have this nice built structure here with all these lights, and octopus don't do that, do they?
Yeah. So actually, me and Ken were having lunch a few days ago, and we came. I talked about this conversation. I asked him, why did, since octopus are so smart, they were 150 million years ahead of us. Why isn't the world ruled by octopus? Right? Does anybody know why? Okay. Huh. No, not. They actually have 8 arms. They're even better than us at manipulating things. So the reason is every single octopus is an orphan. They have no parents. They have nobody to educate them, nobody to pass down information from generation to generation, because the father is eaten by the mother after conception, and the mother stays there, does not eat at all after giving birth. And so she dies, and her body becomes fed to the children, to the little octopus. And so all of them just grow up by themselves with nobody to teach them how to live their life and, to pass down culture and generations of stories and technology. And so this is why we succeeded, because we have language, we have culture, we have cross-generational teaching. And so it's education is why we have succeeded as the apex animal on this planet.
Excellent. And we didn't eat any octopus at that lunch, by the way. No octopi were harmed in the making of this talk. And the theme here is the augmented self. And as Alvin mentioned, one of the very first bits of self-augmentation we do is we watch our parents or other people we admire, and we see them across the room waving some toy around, and we pull ourselves up and say, why don't I learn to walk so that I can get over there and enjoy that toy? I mean, we're spatial beings, we're learning beings, and augmenting ourselves usually involves being inspired by somebody to learn something, which brings us to the topic of this discussion, which is XR in education. And, it also raises the question of how technological innovation either reduces or adds to the need for us to educate ourselves. So we no longer need to figure out how to pick the best cave to live in or how to survive inside a dark cave. We don't have to learn that anymore. We've invented other stuff. So what's happening with XR and AI, and how's that going to change what we need to learn? We don't need to learn simple math anymore. We have calculators. But maybe we need to learn more about how to be smart about using math in our daily lives, regardless of whether calculators are here. So if you replace the concept of cave dwelling or math and calculators with XR coming around, what's that going to cause us to need to learn or keep us from having to learn?
Well, first of all, I think, Ori mentioned a little bit about, the use of AI and XR in our lives. And I think it's going to be increasingly important as we move into a world where immersive devices are going to be much more prevalent. We grew up and developed in a 3D world, so we're most natural in this environment. So in terms of trying to pass information and learn, there's no other medium that is better than an immersive medium. Just like when somebody says, if you want to learn a language, then go to that country, right? And the next best thing is to have an experience inside XR where you have a 3D world and a 3D person that you're speaking with, and that the discussion between you and them will automatically allow you to naturally learn that language and to feel comfortable using it. And so there's actually a whole chapter about learning and education in my book that talks about all the benefits, and it's anybody anywhere from 2x to 5x in terms of improvements in terms of speed of learning, and then also the kind of 5 to 10x in terms of application and comfort with using what you learned. So I'm a big fan of using XR for education, and the other big thing I think it's really good for is for healthcare. So we'll go a little bit more into that. But really, what's happening right now is the AI is the big topic, right? And how is having these super intelligent brains essentially being on our body all the time or on our face? I can access AI through these glasses or through my phone, and it enhances me to essentially have all of the world's knowledge in one place. And that changes why we learn and what we learn in school, right? Almost my entire career learning was always about learning formulas, learning facts, and learning just rote learning, because that's what we got tested on, and that's what we deemed a success. I did well in school, but it didn't really matter because those were just facts that maybe made a difference then, and I probably forgot it a month later or maybe a week later. What we really want to teach people the excitement and interest of learning, the ability to think critically, the curiosity that comes from the enjoyment of learning, and building the habit of lifelong learning, right? I think those kind of things are the most important thing, particularly now where we have so much power with these technologies that the moral and ethics of what we do. We somebody was talking about privacy earlier, and how do we use that data? Who gets to use that data? And that's what we should be teaching our children. That's what we should be learning more is about the morals and the history and the philosophy around technology and the application of technology. So think more about, not how to do something, but why to do it, and should we do it?
Good. And by the way, there is an entire chapter. I've read Alvin's book multiple times, cover to cover. There's an entire chapter in there devoted to education, which I strongly recommend. Though technology-assisted education has sort of been a promise for many years. It's sort of interesting that we're doing a fireside chat here. We requested an actual fire, which they came through on. We have a lovely image of one now. I mean, humans first gathered around fires, and you think of a fireside chat as people sitting by a fire in a cozy living room, having a congenial conversation. In some way, our tools have created environments for us to learn. But not much has happened in the classroom. I mean, there was a lot of hype, even when MIT first came up with open courseware about 30 years ago, publishing copies of PowerPoint slides or video recordings of a single professor standing in front of the room lecturing to an audience. If you look at the Graduate School of Design here, we're gathered in a room where there are a bunch of you sitting in chairs, watching supposedly knowledgeable people in the front of the room speaking at you. The promise of technology-assisted education is a little slow to take hold. I mean, we've had Khan Academy and Coursera and all these other things, but how do we know if any of this is just kind of window dressing, or if any of it is really changing the way people learn? Like, what metrics do we look for? What societal changes do we look for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually the problem with today's education system. Is in general, we the way we've learned, the way we teach haven't changed for a few hundred years. And it was really built, the current system is built on the factory model. It was to create workers that could do the minimum amount of work, follow orders, follow the bell so they can get on and off shifts and be obedient workers to do simple tasks. We're no longer in that world, right? We're not in a world where we want people to be able to be obedient and do little things, because now we have people that are empowered to do a lot of things and are going to be in very dynamic, creative environments. So we need to change the way we teach. And we used to do tests because tests gave you a sense of proficiency. And unfortunately, memorizing particular type of data or particular formula isn't particularly useful, because most of us know once we leave school, we use very few of the little facts that we've learned in school. It's really about the ability to communicate, the ability to lead, the ability to collaborate, and the ability to understand and learn new things, right? That's what we should be teaching, ability to grow longitudinally, your ability to solve problems. The ability to have social skills, that allows you to better collaborate between people. Those are the things I think we need to be measuring more. That the ability to have resilience in challenging environments, because I think a lot of people who are coming out of school today, they've had such a comfortable, easy life that when they finally face the real world and there's so much conflict and challenge, their resilience is challenged. Right. So those are the kinds of things I would like our education system to focus more on, and also to think about teaching less on a particular fixed curriculum per person, but rather to focus on having personalized curriculum to the individual, because every person learns differently, learns at a different pace, and has different interests. Why do we want to teach every single child the exact same thing using the same method, and then using a 1 to 30 or 1 to 20 type model, which we know is significantly less effective than a model where it's 1 to 1 or 1 to 2, where you have the ability to really hone a message to that individual. And I think AI will allow us to have that personal teacher that gives you that one-to-one understanding, one-to-one learning that is custom tailoring a curriculum. And I'm really excited about the potential of technology being used that way versus, let the one laptop per child, you give them a piece of hardware and then they're left on their own. I don't think that's enough. We need to have the guidance of a caring tutor who guides you through the process of learning and rewards you and encourages you, just like I'm sure all of you are here today because somebody encouraged you to focus on education and focus on learning and the thirst of enjoying learning, right? Those are the kind of things that a few individuals in your past affected you. And I think an AI can act like that for those people that don't have those humans in their lives.
And when you talk about changing the way public education is done or the way schools are designed, these are large, bureaucratically-ridden organizations.
Yes.
Politically ridden as well, even debates over teaching creationism versus evolution, debates today about teaching gender fluidity in schools. It's very hard to get people to agree on how we should educate our children and each other, which kind of leads to the question of how do we get people to agree on anything? You read a newspaper today or watch what's going on in Washington, D.C., we're in a pretty screwed up place as a culture. And can we create more harmonious discord, or can AI-enabled XR allow us to figure out how to govern ourselves better?
Yeah, actually, I think that is a role where XR and AI can help, because at the end of the day, why do people have conflicts, right? Why is there so many views? It's because everybody feels that they have the answer, they have the truth. And the reality is that, truth is not a universal thing. We're in Harvard's motto is veritas, right? Truth or reality. And it assumes that there's a single truth. And the person who is viewing it, who's saying it, they feel like they have the single truth. And by having a XR environment to give you a way to take perspectives of other people, it maybe allows you to step into their shoes. I think that is one thing that people talk about AI or XR as an empathy engine, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. In some of the work I did at HTC, we were training people to have males get into a female's perspective so they understand what it's like to be harassed. Right? That you have police getting into the perspective of a person who's getting arrested and what it feels like to be on that side. You have somebody who is a person who is in a service role, talking to a hostile or angry customer, and what it's like to be in each other's shoes, right? I mean, those kind of things, you feel like you have the truth until you step into the other person's shoes, and then you realize, okay, I actually, their perspective also makes sense if I look at it, if I am looking at it from their perspective. And a lot of the conflicts we have right now, between the people in position of power, between the countries, is because there's a lack of understanding. There's so much conflict right now between, let's say, China and U.S. is because I think a lot of the U.S. politicians have never gone to China, doesn't speak the language, don't understand the culture, and don't understand what it feels like to be there, and vice versa, right? And so when two sides don't understand each other, they're going to put the kind of the worst expectations onto the reason of why somebody's doing something. And once they do have that a deeper understanding, they then give the benefit of the doubt and allow for potential to have a discussion. So,
Great. And so there is hope for us if we lean into this stuff.
I hope so. And I think AI can actually also help in addition to the empathy engine thing. I think because AI has read every bit of history from every language, every encyclopedia, every psychology book, it understands both the scientific side as well as the cultural and social side of a lot of these misunderstandings, and could be the guy that sits on your shoulder or on the shoulders of our various leaders to be able to give them the guidance they need to make much more informed decisions.
By the way, I know this isn't an author book tour, and I'm not here to keep talking about Alvin's book, but I'm curious what reception you've gotten to this and what you've learned from observing the way people have reacted to the book.
Yeah, actually, so far I've been talking about it for about a year, and it came out last June. And so far, I think everybody who actually took the time to read, like you have, they come back to me and they say, "Wow, I actually saw and heard things in there that I did not have a prior understanding of, or I didn't have that perspective." And so the way we wrote the book, it was a debate between myself and my co-author, Louis. And Louis actually gave the keynote, opening keynote at last year's HarvardXR. So the fact that we were both opening keynotes in 2 successive years is actually something that is kind of a coincidence. But the fact that we wrote it as a debate so that we force every single person who reads it to take the perspectives of both the optimists and the pessimists around this technology, around its impact in society, so that you aren't given a particular narrative that we're forcing on you. We're forcing you to take both sides and then come to your own conclusions. And I wish there was more books that took that perspective, because there's so much selling that you see in books today versus teaching and trying to guide. Right, and that was the perspective we wanted to give, and then at the end to give a perspective that now that you know all the good and all the bad that could happen, what can you do to actually make a difference so that you can help bend the future towards a more positive end.
Good. And other activities you've been involved in recently, I remember you telling me about the Delphi Economic Forum in Greece, and I think the Greeks claim to have invented democracy too. So was there any discussion there about how AI-enabled XR can help people figure out how to organize themselves better?
Yeah, so I just spent the last week in Delphi, where the Oracle of Delphi. I'm sure you guys know the story. Essentially, back in the old days, the leaders of the country would go. It's actually a really long ways from Athens. It's about like a 2.5 hour drive, and then another multi-hour walk from when you get to the landing place to get to the cave where the oracle would have been. Right, so it's for people at those times would have been probably weeks of travel to get there, and that place, the guardians or people who was at the oracle essentially helps you interpret and answer the toughest questions you have as a leader of what's coming, how should I be dealing with this, will I win this war or will I lose or whatever, right? And I think in a way AI can have an ability to act in a bit of a role similar to what the oracle used to do a few thousand years ago, because it has that ability to see so broadly that we don't have today. Right. And it has the ability to look back in history and to understand all the social, the scientific, the geopolitical aspects of everything that has happened and will happen. Because it feels like a lot of our decisions in Washington today is made on a whim without really deep contemplation. And I think if we had an AI oracle that was guiding them in their decision making, we probably wouldn't have done the things that we have the last few weeks.
So I want to save some time for questions, but I want to tee up one topic, which I would encourage you to either ask questions about or write to us about, because you have a chance to have a 13-week-long version of this conversation Alvin and I are having. You might have seen in the speaker bios that I run a class at MIT called Designing Virtual Worlds, and I relaunch it every September. And I said 13 weeks because that's the length of a semester at MIT. So I'm going to get a classroom full of students, many of them from Harvard GSD. I have a strong cohort of cross-registering students that hike over to MIT to take this class. I have students from Berklee College of Music that do the audio design. And I'm delighted that now that Alvin has left his post at HTC and has some more free time to come back to his alma mater, he's going to help me delivering this course this semester. So if you've got a room full of college students all wanting to do something to move this conversation forward, what would you do with them all semester this fall? So with that, I'll open it up to you for questions or comments. And do we have a QR code? By the way, any of you actual matriculated students, we put a little code up there. This is only for registered students if you want to actually enroll in the class in the fall. But it'll also take you to, we use a Google form to take survey information, intake info from students. And in that Google form is also my email address. And you can use that as a way to learn a little more about what Alvin and I are going to teach this fall. So any questions, comments? Is that Matt?
And thank you so much for the conversation. It's fascinating. Have any schools, I did read that book, Alvin, or school systems been receptive with that book and done something? In other words, because it's just been released a year ago and said, you know what, we're going to move forward with this. This is our initiatives. Just curious on that, positive reception.
Yeah, I've been approached by a few professors saying they wanted to utilize this as part of the curriculum. I mean, the fact that Ken is using this at Harvard/MIT, I think is already saying it's a real endorsement. But I would hope that more professors would look at that as something would be a good supplement to whatever they were teaching with. So.
Yeah.
Bigger.
Bilapal here. Alvin, thank you so much for the conversation. I want to winnow in on the geopolitics point that you brought up, especially the US and China conversation. I mean, it feels like this technology is something any powerful entity wants to own, whether it's state actors or non-state actors, especially given that this tech is fundamentally mediating our interactions in the physical and digital world. And I think XR is going to be the highest exemplification of how we interface with tech. And then there's some sort of AI layer in the middle. How does this not just devolve into some sort of an arms race? Is it really as simple as immersion into each other's cultures? Or do you see, some way this can be prevented from turning into this confrontation that's only going to escalate?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually one of, I think, the biggest problems that we have today. In fact, on Monday, I'm speaking at Stanford about this topic of de-escalating AI arms race between U.S. and China, and how we got here and how do we get out of it, right? The reality is that, and I spent time in DC, I spent time in Beijing, I spent time in Brussels in the last 6 months talking to people like this, and the problem is, I think most people who are in these positions still live in a world where they feel like it's a zero-sum game, and they feel that there is an opportunity for them to win this race, and that they can have a permanent win. And what they don't realize is that everybody's within a few months of each other. There is no permanent win. And in fact, by working together, you have a positive sum game, right? And in fact, if we get to AGI, we could potentially get to a world where you have a world of abundance, where the reason to have that conflict goes away, right? That if you look back in history, why did we have all of these wars in the past? Why do we have conflicts? Why do we have even infighting within a company? Is to get access to resource, right? But if all these resource issues that whether it's energy or it's food or it's technology, all of these things will essentially become abundant within the next 5 years when AGI becomes realized, and it may be even faster than that. When that happens, all the reasons right now that we send our children across the ocean to kill somebody else's children, all of those reasons go away. And we need these people who are in positions of power today to realize that, because the alternative of what they're doing today is that we have either a utopian world, or we have a world where we start creating superpower weapons that can be extremely efficient at killing each other, and then we destroy the only planet that we have, right? And I think I think once these leaders realize the two choices they have, then the only logical answer is actually to work together. But it is not an obvious answer to them, even when you make it that clear.
Is it on? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And you started with the analogy about an octopus and the issue of it was. I was going to answer as a psychiatrist that it was because of the social network that we are where we are today. And so the Pew Research comes out with that the Z generation has the highest loneliness index of all generations. So, and there's debate about are we increasing loneliness by AI, and do you see that as being reduced, or do you see a mix that we would need to have in-person classrooms? We would need to have a mixture of that. I'm thinking about a patient of mine in Toronto who I've been talking on the phone, and then he continued to want that, and then on video, and became quite lonely. Now I'm seeing him in person, the loneliness has disappeared. So I'm just wondering about that element of loneliness and how you see that in terms of in-person versus virtual life.
And I just want to amplify that and talk about in-person learning, because Alvin and I have also brainstormed about new structures for in-person learning. I mean, after film was invented, we built movie theaters. People all go into these theaters and learn. There is an organization that has a great installation out at Arizona State University called Dreamscape Learn, where you walk into what feels like a movie theater experience, and you all put on headsets and play games like a Jurassic Park style theme where you learn about biology that way. What other structures can we build for in-person learning?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of location-based entertainment aspect of an in-person learning type environment would be amazing for anybody, because it makes you so excited to get there, right? I mean, I've taken children to places where we've had essentially field trips where they can learn about history or learn about art, and there's a intense, I guess, attraction to whatever subject that they're in, right? You don't have to convince them that this is something interesting. So to the aspect of loneliness, I don't think any of us are advocating that we replace in-person learning with an AI experience, a single person AI experience. But I think what's important is that the in-person experience is much more focused on the social aspect of how can we be more human? How can we learn to communicate better? How can we work in teams better? Because when you go into the real world, that's what you need. Whereas the facts and learning the facts and the figures and the explanations can be done probably much better and in the right format using AI, so that you get the best of both worlds. So having a good AI system and a good XR system actually makes us more human. It gives us the time that we have to spend time with each other, with our colleagues, with our families. And I think that's something that a lot of people probably don't necessarily appreciate, the potential of this technology to give us the time back that we spend so much today in doing some of the repetitive tasks or menial tasks, that we could now be liberated to spend time focusing on our relationships. So
Thank you.
I think we might be out of time, or is there time for one more question? Oh. Okay, well, I think we'll be around all day or the rest of the afternoon, so come find us if you have more questions.
Yeah, thank you.
That's just